The first thing anyone I think will think of when they hear Anuwat is obviously the iron hands of Siam. I think, me personally, it's lead bones. That's the first thing that comes into my head.
Yeah, this is the one that most people have come here to see tonight.
Obviously, I know him better than most. I fought him twice. I got stopped off him the first time, and the second time I beat him. We had a good little rivalry. And when I say lead bones, I mean lead bones. I remember the first time I was going to fight him, Kieran Kedal said to me, he said, be wary. I said, because Kieran was living in Kaewsamrit gym with him at the time, living in Thailand. He said, mate, he said, he wobbles me every day in 16-ounce gloves. I remember thinking, Jesus Christ. And then I started thinking, it can't be that bad. And obviously he was knocking everyone out, and he's renowned for knocking people out. And he knocked out some of the greatest fighters of this era, like Singnam, Lurdsula. To knock out those guys, you got to have something special about you. But I still talked myself out of it in the first fight, going, it can't be that bad. It was that bad. It was that bad. And it wasn't just his punches, it was his kicks, everything that he did hurt. And I remember he would always had great footwork to put himself in the right position to land his jab. His jab was like most people's backhand. And I remember thinking at the time of the first fight, I was thinking, Jesus Christ, when the first jab he landed and it like rocked my head, I thought, what the fuck with that? And then when he started kicking me as well, and he's setting that up with punch and kick combinations, he's not your regular Muay Mat guy, because he can win on points as well. He's beat some of the best fighters of this generation on points, like Thailand Pinsanchai, who was a serious technician. So when he needs to, he can resort to the point style of fighting, but a lot of times he didn't need to.
And you always say about Muay Thai, it's not about protecting that out, it's not the record, it's who you fought. And do you think that went into you accepting that first time round?
Yeah, well, obviously, I'd never been stopped, I'd never been hurt. Well, if I had been hurt, I'd always come back and won and knocked them out. So I was just thinking, yeah, I'm invincible here, I'm unbeatable. But there was everything that could go wrong with that. Not only the camp, but the fight itself, and everything that went wrong just went wrong. No excuses, I just got fucked up. But I knew that I could beat him. I knew if my head was fully in the game and I did the right camp and I got the right tactics, I knew I could beat him. And obviously, everything that happened in the first fight helped me get the right game plan, get the right mindset, and it made a great story for the way that it happened in England in front of all our fans and all my friends and family. It was on my dad's birthday, so it was just a really special moment. But even in that fight, I got hurt, probably the worst I've ever been hurt in my whole career. Again, he hit me with a left hook in round 4. And even though I won the fight, I remember looking at him and he was going like this, waving everywhere, and I was thinking, shit, are my legs gone here? I thought, if he hits me again, he's going to knock me out. And I thought, just call him on, he won't know. So I went, come on then. And he stopped for a second in his tracks. But if he'd just walked forward and hit me again, there's no doubt in my mind I'd have probably gone down, because honestly, I was like this. After the fight, I went to the after party. I was sat there, I'm looking at everyone drinking beer. And again, the room just started going like this. I came round, I was in the back of the ambulance getting taken to hospital because I had a really bad concussion. They kept me in overnight and put me on a drip to make sure I was hydrated and stuff like that. And that's what, even a fight where I've won, that guy still put me in hospital from a left hook. So yeah, he's a... Did
your legs come back by the end of that fight, or was it...
So yeah, I was in autopilot at the time of that. I was in the zone, I was winning quite comfortably. And I just had a split second where I swung and my arm came down. I remember going boom, and I was thinking, whoa, and I was looking at him and he was doing that. And I was like, Jesus, he's going to knock me out. Just call him on. So I went, come on. And he didn't come on, thank God. So yeah, honestly, if he'd have come on, he'd have finished me, I reckon. But he didn't. And then the round ended. I'd won the round, got back to the corner, had my minute to clear my head. I was fresh again at the end of round 5. I won round 5 pretty comfortably again. But yeah, like I say, after the fight, I paid the price. But yeah, and I have no doubt as well, if this guy ever came to one championship, hitting people like that, he might have even had a body on his record, because honestly, just feeling it in 8-ounce gloves was diabolical. If he'd have hit me with that left hook in 4-ounce gloves, I'd have still been eating through a straw now, I reckon.
And tell me about that, because we mentioned before he didn't have the opportunity to fight on one. But why do you think how did he develop this style? Because it's not your traditional Thai style.
No, not at all. If you put him in the 4-ounce gloves, it's probably lucky for most fighters these days, Ian, in that, because I don't see how anyone beats him. Yeah. If you look at the success Rodtang has, Anuwat was Rodtang 2.0. He could hit much harder. He could kick much harder. he was fought at a much higher level against, and he knocked out a lot better opposition than Rodtang and fought against. And look at the success Rodtang's had in one championship. So I honestly don't see how anyone from 125 to 135 would have beaten him. It would have made for some crazy fights if he was around now, though. But yeah, like I said, the way he punched, it wasn't like a traditional Muay Thai style of punching. A lot of it just seemed to be coming from his arms and stuff like that. You'll see him just like throw a lot of just straight uppercuts. He'd turn his knuckles down a lot, but his straight right hand wouldn't be too straight. It'd turn at an angle like that. So he'd always be chopping down onto the chin or onto the top of the head. And it just worked. Like, there's not many people who could punch like him or have that same style. Everything he did was just, if you saw, even if it was from the back, if you saw that punch, you'd know it were Anuwat, even if you couldn't tell who it was from the front. Not many people could punch like that, and I don't know anyone else who had that similar style, but he also had devastating leg kicks, he had great footwork, he had great counters, he had good reactions, and he had a solid chin to go with it as well. So it wasn't like he was going just crazy and trading shots. His footwork would put him in the position, and then he'd set the shots up. Like, sometimes he'd let the left kick land, sometimes he'd counter with a left hook, sometimes he'd trap it in right hand. He had a lot of different traps going on to set up his KO shots.
Tell me about those kicks, because one comment that I see coming back and back is he barely throws a kick. So how, we know that in Muay Thai you use your teep to get the range and to close the distance and stuff like that. How can you do that when the threat of the kick's coming back your way? How can you close the distance?
So it was his footwork. His footwork was very good, and his jab. His jab, like I said, I mentioned earlier, it was like a right hand. He would step in and stick that jab in the face. Sometimes he'd bring it down to the body as well. His feet would put him right in the perfect spot to be able to land these. He'd also soften you up with leg kicks. He wouldn't spam them, but every now and then off the hand combinations, he would chop a nasty, devastating leg kick in. And like I say, I fought him, they hurt. They really did hurt. But yeah, it were his footwork and his counters that, and always putting himself in the right place and not going crazy and not going gung-ho with his combinations and leaving himself wide open for elbow counters and stuff like that. Like I said, we spoke about the technique of his shots. His combinations always were never like wild swings or anything like that. They were coming at nasty, short, sharp angles, and they were fast as well.
And you mentioned like the hard leg kicks and the hard punches. There's obviously going to be comparisons drawn between your two styles. Was he someone you tried to model your style on, or is it just a coincidence that these were your best attributes?
I think it were a bit of a coincidence. I used to try and model myself on Tong Chai, who was one of my favourite fighters. He was my style. Fast hand combinations, finish on the low kick, fast hands, low kick. Anuwat was just more bang, bang, single power shots. And every now and then he'd just chop a nasty leg kick in. It was just that hard that he didn't need as many low kicks as me or Tong Chai would need. I'd seen Anuwat stop a few fighters with leg kicks, and after 3 or 4, I've just seen him fall. So yeah, I think like I said earlier, he just had lead bones. He was just a freak of nature. I don't think there's many people out there who are ever going to have that natural power and that natural killer instinct that he had, that if he saw you slightly hurt, just to finish you off.
And let's go on to that pressure, because one of my favourite things is when you see a fighter really putting it on their opponent and their breathing gets heavier. You can tell they're almost looking for a way out at times. What's it like facing that kind of pressure? And how can you put your opponents under pressure like Anuwat does without risking something big coming back your way?
Again, I think he was lucky because everyone was scared of his power. So when he's putting himself in his position to land it, not many people wanted to engage with him because they thought, if I leave myself open here, I'm going to get taken out. A lot of fighters use their left kick to try and kick and then move. And like we mentioned earlier, one of Anuwat's favourite things to do, he'd try and stop the left kick or trap it like that. As he stopped it, he'd fire his right hand right down the pipe. I know this was one of his best ones because I sort of stole that off him, because it's something I use now and I teach a lot. If I can't block the left kick, I'll trap and I'll fire my right hand. But when he fired his right hand, I've seen him knock out, I think he knocked out Pooja with it, and I've seen him knock out quite a few other people. That played into the game plan in my second fight, that I had to kick and step out of range, because if you left kick and drop your leg there, that's coming straight down. I was making sure I left kicked and my left leg went behind me, and then my right leg went back behind that, so I was completely out of range, and he ain't going to be able to do that, because if you just kick and leave yourself close, he was quite happy to just take it on his arms, cushion it and fire that right hand out middle. That's one of the best things that I have about him. And a lot of times in the fight, my old Thai coach, he said, because we used to go to Rajanam when I lived in Thailand, because I was just coming up and we'd go to Rajanamnern and we'd watch him, or we'd go to Lumpini and watch him, and GT'd say, watch what he does. He gives you a kick for free, he gives you another one for free, and then on the third, boom. And I noticed that's what he was doing. He was just setting little traps. He said that sometimes he might even do it with the knee. If someone steps into the left knee, he'll just boom, and he'll make it look like it had more effect than it did. And the next time as they go, pop, the left hook will just come over the top. So we were really sneaky with these stuff, setting up little traps and things like that. So stuff like that, watching him, that giving the one for free and the counters, I did steal them off him really. I'll try and put them into my game.
And you mentioned pull counters and stuff like that. Do you put that down? Do you put Anuwat's success in the pocket? Is that just years of sparring, sparring? How do you get that intelligent, that kind of reaction in the pocket? Because it is such a dangerous place to be. Again,
I think he was a bit of a freak of nature. I'm sure he won the Rajanamnern title with less fights than any other fighter. I'm sure he won the title after only like 40 fights, which is almost unheard of, because around 40 fights, fighters in Thailand are still fighting every other week. They're still learning the trade. I'm sure it might have even been 36 fights before he won his first title, which is ridiculous. And it were the 105-pound title. Obviously, then he won titles right up to 130, which is crazy. But again, like sitting in the pocket, this comes down to his toughness as well. We mentioned that earlier, because this is one thing that gets overlooked. When you are that style of fighter, the Muay Mat style, although he was very smart about where he was putting himself in with his counters, you are going to have to take a lot of shots to put yourself in the position to knock someone out, especially when you're fighting at that level every other month against the guys like Singdam, Lursila, all the Duaos, the Watarachais, all the elite level guys who were around at that time. You have to put yourself in the right position, but you also have to be willing to take the shots. And he could take it. He was very tough. I don't think he got stopped many times, other than towards the really, really back end of his career when he'd sort of lost that hunger and fire. And when you look back, I know you do like to place these fighters on a pedestal, these legends of Muay Thai, especially the Thai fighters. When you look back that you shared the ring twice with him, what does that mean to you to have shared the ring twice with a legend like Anuwat? Well, this is a guy who's knocked out Singdam twice. He's knocked out Lursila. Now, most people can't even lay a glove on Lursila. Someone and let him knock him spark out like that. That's a very special guy. All the other elite level guys that he knocked out, he was a special fighter, and for me to be able to get in there and even just say you fought him, let alone beat him, that's one of my proudest accomplishments. Going back to that Lursila thing as well, I was watching that fight recently. And again, I remember another thing that I remember when I fought him was his left up to the body. I remember thinking how hard that was, and I remember a few times it really knocked wind out of me. I was watching that fight with Lursila the other day, and he kept faking the jab and doing that left up to the body, and that really took all the life out of Lursila and really hurted him and brought his hands down before he finished him with the right hand. So that's another really good weapon he had. Not many fighters have got a really sickening body shot as well as the jab, which can set up the right hand like he did. He had real lead in both hands. And if there are a couple of things, because a lot of people who watch your channel, they might be hobbyists, they like to train at their local gyms. If there's a couple of things you can give them to look at Anuwat's game and apply to their own training, what would that be? The counter punching, obviously, like I was saying then about when he'd take that and he'd fire straight back with the right hand. When you're young and you're coming up and you're trying to pick out little stuff from these fighters, that'd be a perfect one, because when you're sparring or when you're fighting, you get kicked, you don't do it, you get kicked, you don't do it. It only takes one or two big kicks and you'll start to be chasing the fight. But if you start countering straight back, it'll just, even if you just drill stuff like that, even for 10 minutes after a class, just get someone to kick in, you bang, you drill back, kick it, bam, you fire back, bam, you come back. Anuwat was so good at doing that with his punches, so that would be one of my things to say for a beginner to watch for him. Not even just a beginner, just of anyone, any level really. If you just watch how he would always, if a kick landed clean on him, he'd fire straight back with his right hand or a combination. Take that away and have a look at that. Also have a look at his feet and his footwork, how he puts himself into position before he throws any real venom, because when you fight at that level and people are scared to stand in front of you, they're always moving. If he just starts swinging, they're going to be moving off around here and they'll make himself look stupid. So the footwork and the countering of firing straight back are the two main things I'd say have a look and take away. And we are definitely going to be doing more videos talking about the styles of these fighters. And you have your modern day heroes like your Rodtang, Superlek, Haggerty, people like that. How and why is it important for us not to forget these people who laid the foundations? Oh, but look, I mean, I honestly think as combat sports evolve, the fighters are getting a bit softer. And I think it's not just Muay Thai, it's all combat sports. If you look at the boxers from the 90s, the 80s, the 70s.
Say about Marvin Hagler.
Marvin Hagler and all these guys, Tommy Earns, Duran, Sugar Ray. They're a dying breed. Those guys were all in like the similar way. It's like you'd be lucky if you get one fighter like that these days. If you look at the ties from back then, from that era, Anuwat, Sanchai, obviously Nongo's still going, but he's way past his prime. We had the guys like Nongo, we had Sagat Dowes, we had Pet Boonchus. We had absolute killers in every single division. So they're filtering out a little bit now, and obviously the sport's evolving, but we have to go back and pay these guys homage, and not even them guys. I mean, go back to the 90s, the golden eras and stuff. Those guys were even tougher than those guys. It were a different breed. So yeah, I think it's always worth going back and paying homage to them guys, especially the guys like Anuwat, because his style, you can take so many things from his style and put it into the guys who were fighting one championship, and you can try and steal little bits like our on about the countering and stuff that had worked so well. So yeah, I think it's always worth going back and paying homage to the guys who laid the foundations out.
And without going on too much of a tangent, when you are doing your S&C stuff, I remember for this camp, you do have your scientific side of things, but then also doing like your pull-ups, your sit-ups. Is that kind of paying respect to homage to the older guys, or maybe the more traditional way of doing things? Yeah,
there's probably even no sports that specific reason to do any of that probably whatsoever, but it's just ingrained into me that I've been told to, every time you finish training, go do 50 pull-ups, get the thing in your neck, do that, strengthen your neck up, do 200 sit-ups. So that's just ingrained into me. Every time I finish training, I will do that. Obviously the ties would still say, right, go run 10k, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Let's not get too far here, let's not go too far. But yeah, some of those ways are just instilled into you.
And let's end by telling me you've fought with him twice. Tell me the lessons that you learned each time leaving the ring against him.
Do the lessons learned. So the lesson learned the first time was never ever think it can't be that bad, because it can be that bad. Like I said, like when people were saying to me, he nearly knocked me out in 16th gloves, and I'm thinking it can't be that bad. It fucking was that bad. But yeah, the second one, like I say, I still learned so many things in that fight, and I realised how disciplined I could be in a fight, in that second fight, because I knew if I didn't get that game plan exactly right to a T, I'd get stopped and knocked out again. So that second fight taught me discipline in there. I couldn't make no mistakes. I couldn't just get involved in a war, which I like to do sometimes. I had to be calculated, and I had to be cool. There was a time where I had to trade, and I did it. There were times where I had to get my bike, and I did it. And I think I pulled the game plan off perfect in that fight. So yeah, he taught me many things. He taught me how disciplined I could be if I needed to be, and he taught me about what it feels like to get hit really off a proper hitter. Like no one's hit me like that before, and so yeah, that taught me always stay in my lane. Sometimes there's always someone out there who can punch harder or kick harder. So yeah, he's many lessons were taught. Then yeah, if you want to see more like this, let us know. Drop us a message below which fighters you want to see next, from the old school, the new school. Let us know.
Just a last one then. Have you seen Anuwat since your second fight?
Yeah, I saw him in Thailand. He was still fighting for a couple of years afterwards, and I still saw him. Still said hello. We still speak on social media and stuff. So when we do this one, we'll tag him in. And I
was going to say that. And if you do have a message for him now, down the camera lens, a message to Anuwat, what would it be?
It'd be thank you for the lessons. Thank you for the opportunity to fight with a legend like yourself. You were always one of my favourite fighters. Thank you for the lost brain cells as well. And I hope you're very well, mate. I've seen you back in the gym at Kaewsamrit doing a bit of coaching. So if I'm ever over in Thailand, hopefully we'll catch up again.